An important project that we're going to be working on right off the bat in 302, I wanted to waste no time in getting into this, is the research project. And let me share my screen with you. Okay, so what is this research project? First thing you should know is in your program, you are required to do research and an oral presentation. Both of those will be done through this class. So this will meet your Math 348 requirement. And what you're going to be doing, and so it's not too early to start thinking about this now, you're going to be selecting a topic from either middle school or high school mathematics. And we're going to, the end of the first week, we're going to be looking through the standards documents. So that will help you as you go through those documents, help you find something that you would be interested in studying more. But examples of topics might be stuff like this, like quadratic formula, or triangle proofs in geometry, or probability in middle school, or equation solving in middle school, or teaching trig functions at the high school level. All right, so those might be examples of topics that you would choose. And by very early in the semester, I want you to know what your topic's going to be. And actually, before I get any further, I want to make a point that actually doesn't come till the second page here. I'm going to let you work in pairs just on the selecting and searching for the articles end of the project. Okay, so you are going to be allowed to work in pairs. And I'll set up a discussion board so that you can find somebody else that might be interested in the same thing that you are. And the second part of this project, okay, so there's the easy part of just selecting a topic. The second part is where you just select your sources. All right, you search and you find these related articles that you can use for this project. And you're going to have the support of the instructional librarian. She is going to provide a Canvas module and also some office hours support in using the search engine. And she's also going to help you identify what is actual research and then what it means to be a peer-reviewed journal as opposed to something not peer-reviewed, like maybe somebody's blog. All right, so she's going to help you understand those things. And when you find these articles, the first part of this assignment is simply giving me a list of your sources. You have to cite each article in APA style, so the librarian can support you in learning how to write things correctly in that style. We're actually going to start using that style right off the bat at the beginning of the semester to help you get ready for this. And then you're compiling a list of the sources that you have found, and here's what you have to have. All right, you have to have one source which is an actual research study. And again, you'll have support in how to identify a research study compared to just a peer-reviewed article. Okay, something that's not research is when a teacher writes an article and says, hey, this worked really well in my classroom, and they share an idea. All right, a research study means that you actually have to critically analyze something. Maybe you have a control group, right? So you set up that study, you collect data, you analyze data. All right, and that's what if we want to consider education a science, right? A science is based on data. Personally, I'd rather consider education an art, but that's a discussion for a different time. Okay, so the research study means that somebody tried something out with actual subjects and collected data on it, and they can actually quantify the results based on using this certain teaching method. Okay, then you have to find 3 sources from peer-reviewed journals. So these will be sources where someone writes and says, hey, this worked really well in my classroom. Here's an idea. I'm sharing it. All right. And what you're going to do is in the last phase of this assignment, you are going to compare your peer-reviewed journal articles to the research study. Okay. Because peer-reviewed journal articles aren't necessarily written based on a collection of data. All right. So we're going to say, what would the actual research study say about this article that happened, this idea that came from Mrs. So-and-so's classroom. All right, then you're also going to find one mathematics textbook source. You're going to go to either the New York State modules or the eMath instruction, and you're going to select all applicable modules from there. And if these words don't sound familiar to you, they will soon. And then you have to find an idea for integrating some technology. Okay, so in phase one, all you're doing is collecting these sources, submitting a bibliography with your partner. Now, you and your partner can have all of the same sources, or maybe you like this technology lesson, your partner likes the other technology lesson. So in some places you have different sources, and that's totally fine. You can either submit one bibliography for the two of you, or you can have two separate ones where maybe you have a couple places where you have each selected a different article or different activity. And what you're graded for then, a lot of your points come just from properly citing it using APA style. So this is very important. If you don't bother learning this, you'll actually get about a 50% on the first phase of this project. All right. Then what you're graded for after that is just the relevance of your sources. Okay. So you have to make sure that you found sources at the right level. Remember, there are an awful lot of topics that get taught both at the middle school and at the high school level. If you said, I'm doing equation solving in middle school, right, you shouldn't have an article that's talking about quadratic equations, right? That would not be at the right level for you. Other things you have to be careful of, make sure your sources are current. I listed the appropriate dates up here. And make sure your research source really is research, right? It really is based on an actual study. You'll be able to identify research sources because they're really hard and cumbersome to read. That's one way you'll learn how to identify those. But again, the research librarian will support you in that. And other things you have to make sure is just make sure the sources are really related to your topic. All right, there's times that based on the title, you might think like, oh yeah, this sounds good just based on the title. You might read it and realize that it's really not a good match for the topic that you selected. Okay, so that is what you're graded on, is relevance and then citing them properly using APA formatting. Okay, so like I said, you're working with a partner. You don't have to. If you prefer to work alone, that's fine as well. And again, I encourage you to read the rubric ahead of time. And there are two possible dates that you could submit. All through the semester, you're going to see that I'm going to have a series of different due dates. I'm going to let people either sign up for the due dates or maybe we'll pick them out of a hat, because there's a very large number of you and these are very time consuming for me to grade. And so I am going to have people turn them in kind of on a rolling basis so that I only collect a small chunk at a time. And when it's time to do your final, the annotated bibliography, so that's where you actually go through and you write a summary of each article. And then every time you summarize an article, you go back to that research source and say, well, what would the research source say about this teaching idea? Or how would the research source judge this textbook? Right? Does the research study support the way that the material is presented in the textbook, or does it not support, right, the way that the textbook presented the material? So as you can see, that research source is the backbone of your assignment. All right, so here are possible dates. I'm going to have about, 5 of you turn in at each different due date. I'm going to tell you to, when we get to campus, to check out your schedule of, exams and projects for other classes. Pick a date that looks like it would work for you. If people are fighting over dates, then we'll draw dates out of a hat. All right, but that's how we're going to come up with which date you are supposed to turn in your assignment. And then at the end of analyzing all this research, there is a small question here where you get to talk about your own opinion. All right, because someday you're going to have a classroom of your own and you just found like 5 different ideas for teaching coordinate geometry, right? You can't do all of these great ideas. There's not enough time. So this is where I'm going to let you give your opinion supported with evidence, and you are going to let me know which one you think would be the best use of time in your classroom out of all of the things that you researched. So more information will follow. This was just kind of a cursory overview of this project.